Good morning. Welcome to yet another Saturday edition of Belal Hamideh answering your questions. Bilal, how are you doing today?
Great as ever, Greg. How are you doing this morning?
Same, doing good. It's good. It's a day after holiday. It's a real nice day out. So yeah, as ever, I'm glad to be here. This is good. We've got, as you can see, folks, if you've been sticking around, we have some new backgrounds here that I think really add a lot to this. I like it. It's your suit matches your background better than my polo shirt does. I'm gonna have to find something gray to fit into this. I like this. I like this. Well, yeah, we're just jumping right into it today, folks. As ever, you sent your questions in, and Bilal is happy to answer them. Very first question, and this is something I personally wondered about myself. What is a continuous trauma claim?
All right, so this is a question in regards to workers' compensation, work injuries. There's two type of dates of injury in workers' comp. The first one is the most obvious. It's a specific injury. It's an injury that occurs on one day. So, for example, if there's a finger amputation, that's one incident occurs on one day. But there's a different type of injury called the continuous trauma. And that's an injury that occurs over a period of time. So, for example, the most common example is somebody like a secretary who gets carpal tunnel syndrome. They're typing every day for 1 year, January 1st, 2019 to January 26, 2020. And on January 26, 2020, all of a sudden, they have hand pain due to carpal tunnel syndrome. So that's an injury that occurs over time. It's not a result of an incident that took place on one day. And that's a continuous trauma claim. And those are as good of a claim as a specific injury claim in workers' comp. So if you do have pain that arose because of a period of time of work, then you may be entitled to workers' compensation money.
Thank you. I'm so glad you said that because that's something I know personally. It took me a minute to wrap my mind around the idea that an injury isn't something that occurs just in one moment. It can be something that builds up, and that still fits under workers' compensation. That leads into the second question, which is how does a workers' comp settlement look?
So there's two types of workers' compensation settlements, and usually you settle your case after you're done with all your medical treatment. The first type of settlement, you leave future medical care open for life. That means that anytime you have a flare up for your work related injury, you can return back to the workers' compensation doctor or doctors that you were seeing. The other type of settlement, and it's more common, is where you accept cash and you don't leave medical open, but you basically negotiate the cash value for that lifetime future medical treatment. And that is the more common settlement, and it's known as the compromise and release. The first settlement, where you leave future medical care open for life, that's a stipulation with request for award. So depending on how good the offer is to close out future medical from the insurance company, it affects what option is better for you.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. That again, that just shows how important it is to have somebody that really knows how to handle a workers' compensation case since it's such high stakes about what your medical treatment's going to be. The third question's interesting because it's something that seems like it's really relevant to this time, which is can I make a stress claim in workers' comp?
Yes. So if you have
Mm.
stress, anxiety, depression, or any other psychiatric injury as a result of your work, you can make a claim for stress.
Oh, wow.
That's a psychiatric claim. However, it's a little harder to qualify for a psychiatric claim than it is for like an orthopedic physical injury claim because you
Mhm.
have to meet certain things. First of all, you have to be an employee for at least 6 months in order to qualify for a stress claim. So if you start working somewhere and get stressed out on the second day, it doesn't mean that you can just file a stress claim. But if you start working somewhere and on the first minute you get injured physically, you lift something and your back goes out, you are qualified for a workers' comp claim. So that's the one big difference with psychiatric injury and physical injury, that you have to work at least 6 months prior to making a psychiatric claim. The second thing is you have to prove that of all your anxiety, stress, and depression, that the predominant cause of your current stress is your work-related stress.
Oh,
So if there's other things going on or that have gone on in your life, and those are the predominant cause, meaning they are more than 51% of your current stress, anxiety, depression, then you don't qualify for a psychiatric claim in workers' comp. So it is a little bit harder to qualify, but generally, if you know you meet those two conditions, then you can qualify for workers' comp money for psychiatric injuries.
wow. I never knew that. That's really helpful. I mean, there's a lot of people I'm sure struggling, with anxieties on the job, thinking like, hey, this is just something I got to get over. But what you're saying is that's a real viable thing if you've toughed it out and given it a shot. That's great. And the next question is another thing I think it's important that people hear. Can my employer retaliate against me for filing a work injury claim?
So one of the more common concerns that employees have, if I get injured, should I tell my boss? Is my boss going to get mad and fire me? And then how am I going to pay for my bills? You know what? Let me just, suck it up and just keep working with my injury. I'm not going to make a problem out of it. But in California, if you retaliate against an employee for making a workers' comp claim, then you can sue the employer for wrongful termination. There's also labor codes like 132A, where you can file a petition within your workers' comp case to get a penalty of up to $10,000 plus back pay and
Wow.
attorney costs. So, it's obvious when somebody gets fired because they reported a work related injury. If you're an employee
Mm,
with a good performance record with a company and all of a sudden you get fired because you were injured and the firing is close in proximity in time to the injury, then it's obvious you're getting retaliated against. And then that case is probably going to be worth even more than your workers' compensation case.
right.
So don't be worried about retaliation. The one who should be worried if the employer retaliates against the employee, the one who should be worried is the employer, not the employee, because those are not fun cases for the employer. And they're getting better about training their supervisors and HR about treating the employees correctly and to make sure not to retaliate due to work injury filing.
Wow, that's so reassuring. That's great that you said that. It's not just that, yeah, that if you get hurt, absolutely go report it. You get hurt on the job, go report it. And there's real teeth backing that they're really fighting back against employers doing that. That's genuinely great to hear. And then the fifth question also speaks to, what comes after the injury itself, which is how can I get retraining after a work injury?
So a lot of times, unfortunately, a work injury is severe to the extent that you're no longer able to do that type of job. I mean, if you have a
Mm,
construction job and you have a back surgery that was required, maybe you can't go back to that job because you're going to risk getting re-injured. So if you have work restrictions that were provided to you by your primary treating physician and they're permanent work restrictions, and the employer cannot accommodate those restrictions, meaning you're they won't let you back to work under those work restrictions, and they cannot accommodate you, then you're entitled to a supplemental job displacement voucher, which is for
mm.
retraining, and it's a voucher worth up to $6,000. So
Oh,
you can
wow.
possibly, with a retraining voucher, get a more lucrative job that's less physically demanding and maybe be in a better position or better paying job than you were at when you originally got injured. So there is opportunities for vouchers, and we do make sure that the clients who are entitled to them do receive them.
No, that's very reassuring to hear. That's great to know. Honestly, every time we do these, I'm always a little bit buoyed and reassured afterwards because it seems like, because the layperson, you get hurt on the job, you think, oh my word, what's going to happen next? And yet, whenever I talk to you, I always hear that there are these options, there are opportunities, there are chances to move forward from that. Well, that's the five questions we got during the week. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Bilal, or did someone else message you something during our broadcast? Or
Just thank you to everyone who, watches the podcast, and hopefully we're providing valuable information to you that you can use in your day-to-day life. We talk about personal injury cases, workers' compensation cases, and employment disputes. You know, those three things are part of our daily lives. We drive a car every day, we work every day, and we need to know how to protect ourselves against unfair employers. So I just want to share the knowledge and continue to do so through these podcasts. We do the live question and answer every other Saturday at 11 a.m. So I would, request that you tune in. If you can't tune in, then these videos are made available afterwards on YouTube at the Belal Hamideh YouTube channel. If you can subscribe and turn on notifications, then you will see the videos made available afterwards. Again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of me and Greg, and look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. And everyone be safe and enjoy your weekend.
absolutely, take it easy. Have a great night.